August 24th, 410 AD, in a single night, the unthinkable happened. Rome, the Eternal City, was breached for the first time in 800 years, not by an empire, but by an army it once called allies. And the fall had already begun, from within. August 24th, 410 AD. The camera glides slowly across an ancient parchment map, cracked, faded, marked by the weight of centuries. At its center, etched in deep imperial red, lies a single name, Rome. From that marked point, the city begins to rise. Miniature marble temples push through the parchment surface. Colonnaded forms unfold. Aqueducts stretch across the hills. Bounds basilicas, triumphal arches, the architectural language of empire, assemble piece by piece, as if summoned from memory itself. The scale grows. The camera descends into the living city, torchlight flickering across stone streets, banners hanging from senatorial villas, the distant echo of footsteps beneath the shadow of the Colosseum. This is the Eternal City. For 800 years, its walls had never been breached by a foreign enemy. They were more than fortifications. They were a promise that Rome was not merely a city, but the center of the world, a symbol of permanence in an age of chaos. But on this night, that illusion was about to shatter. Beyond the Salarian Gate, unseen in the darkness, an army was gathering. As Alaric and his Visigoths prepared to enter the city, the unthinkable was already unfolding. So how did it come to this? How could the heart of the world's greatest empire be brought to its knees, not just by an invading force, but by fear, betrayal, and catastrophic political failure? To understand how the impossible became inevitable, you have to look beyond the fires of that single night and into the slow decay that had been spreading through the empire for decades. By the early 5th century, the Western Roman Empire was a giant with feet of clay. It was divided, economically strained, and militarily dependent on the very outsiders it once conquered. The Rome of 410 AD still looked eternal, but beneath the marble, the foundations were already cracking, and the price of that illusion was about to be paid in fire. At the heart of this story are two men, giants of their age, whose lives were tragically tangled: Flavius Stilicho, the master general of the Western Roman army, and Alaric, the first king of the Visigoths. Now, this was not a simple tale of a Roman hero versus a barbarian villain. The truth is way more complicated. Alaric was a product of the Roman system. Born a nobleman on the Danube frontier, he had served Rome, and served it well. In 394, at the Battle of the Ferditus, he led 20 of his Gothic warriors into a meat grinder for Emperor Theodosius, losing half his men to secure a Roman victory. His reward? Next to nothing. His sacrifice was barely acknowledged, and his request for a promotion to a high-ranking general was denied. Feeling betrayed, the Visigoths decided it was time to fight for their own interests. In 395, they raised Alaric on a shield and declared him their king. But here is the thing. He did not want to destroy Rome. He wanted a place within it. He wanted land for his people, and the official command he believed he had earned. Standing in his way was Stilicho, a Vandal by birth, who had risen to the absolute peak of Roman power. Stilicho was the only man who really understood the delicate balance needed to keep the empire from falling apart. As regent for the young and useless Emperor Honorius, Stilicho repeatedly faced Alaric on the battlefield. He defeated him in major battles at Pollentia and Verona in Italy in 402 AD. Yet he always let Alaric retreat, recognizing that the Visigoths were too valuable as potential allies and too dangerous as permanent enemies to be totally destroyed. Stilicho planned to use Alaric's battle-hardened troops to strengthen the west against the east. It was a high-stakes game of war and diplomacy, played by two men who were both rivals, and in a strange way, colleagues. This delicate, dangerous dance came to a catastrophic end in August of 408 AD. Back in the imperial capital of Ravenna, Emperor Honorius was a weak ruler, easily manipulated by the schemers in his court. An anti-barbarian faction, deeply suspicious of Stilicho's Vandal heritage and his deal-making with Alaric, whispered poison into the emperor's ear. accusing the empire's greatest general of treason. Honorius, paranoid and foolish, believed them. Stilicho was arrested and executed on August 22, 408. With his death, the voice of reason in the Western Empire was silenced for good. But the conspirators did not stop there. In a wave of xenophobic rage, Roman troops were encouraged to massacre the wives and children of the thousands of Gothic soldiers serving in their own army. It was a fatal, idiotic mistake. Those Gothic soldiers, now with nothing left to lose, defected to Alaric by the thousands, burning with a righteous desire for revenge. Overnight, his army swelled with disciplined Roman-trained veterans. The one man who could have stopped Alaric was dead, and Rome had just handed his enemy a new army. The path to Rome was now wide open. Alaric besieged the city for the first time in late 408, leaving only after the Senate paid him a massive ransom. He came back again in 409, even setting up a puppet emperor named Priscus Attalus to try and force negotiations. But Honorius, safe in his fortress-like capital of Ravenna, stubbornly refused every single offer. The final straw came when Honorius's general launched a surprise attack on Alaric's camp during peace talks. Furious, Alaric marched on Rome for the third and final time. By August of 410, Rome was starving. The blockade had tightened like a noose around the Eternal City. Grain shipments had stopped. Markets stood empty. Inside the walls, desperation hung heavier than the summer heat. Citizens whispered in darkened alleyways, abandoned not only by hope, but by their emperor himself. There is a story about Honorius which, while likely apocryphal, captures the distance between ruler and reality. When a messenger rushed in to announce, "Rome has perished," the emperor allegedly panicked, fearing for the safety of his favorite pet chicken, also named Rome. Only when reassured that it was the city, not the bird, that had fallen did he sigh in relief. While the emperor remained safe behind the marshes and fortifications of Ravenna, the real Rome waited in silence. The end did not come with thunderous siege engines or collapsing walls. It came quietly, on the night of Adwa 24th, beneath a moon half hidden by smoke and dust. Figures moved in the shadows near the Salarian gate. Whether driven by starvation, fear, or betrayal, someone inside the city opened it. The iron hinges groaned, and the world changed. Gothic war horns shattered the silence as Visigoth warriors poured into the sleeping streets. Torchlight flickered against marble walls. Sandaled feet thundered across ancient stone roads, once reserved for triumphal processions. For 3 days, Rome was surrendered to plunder. Imperial palaces were stripped of gold. Senatorial villas were ransacked room by room. Statues were toppled, their stone faces cracking against the pavement. Tombs of long-dead emperors, Augustus, Hadrian, were broken open, their ashes scattered into the chaos of the streets they once ruled. Yet this was not the indiscriminate slaughter later legends would describe. Alaric, a devout Arian Christian, imposed order amid the collapse. Fires burned in places, but mass killing was restrained. His most sacred command was clear. The great basilicas of St. Peter and St. Paul were to remain untouched, and so the terrified population fled there. Thousands crowded beneath vaulted ceilings, clutching relics, children, and what little remained of their world. Outside, the sack continued, disciplined, methodical, almost surgical in its extraction of Rome's accumulated wealth. It was not annihilation, it was humiliation. The terror was real. The psychological wound immeasurable, but the physical destruction, though shocking, was far less than the legends that would echo through history. After 3 days, the Visigoths departed, marching south with their loot. Alaric's next goal was to cross into North Africa and seize the province that served as Rome's breadbasket, a move that would have given him total leverage over the empire, but it was not to be. A storm destroyed his fleet in the strait, and shortly after, in late 410, Alaric died of a sudden fever near modern-day Cosenza. The man who had humbled Rome was gone. The physical damage to the city could be repaired. The psychological wound, however, was permanent. For 800 years, Rome had been the Eternal City, the sacred heart of civilization, believed to be protected by the gods themselves. That illusion of invincibility was shattered forever. The news sent a shockwave across the world. St. Jerome, writing from Bethlehem, cried out, "The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken." The sack of 410 was not the end of the Roman Empire. The western half would limp on for another 66 years, but it was a mortal blow. It proved that the government could no longer protect even its symbolic heartland. It crushed Roman confidence and sped up the empire's fragmentation as other Germanic groups began carving out kingdoms from Roman territory. The fall of Rome was not a single event, but a long, slow unraveling. The night of August 24, 410 was not the final chapter, but it was the moment the world was forced to see that even the eternal city was mortal. History remembers empires for their glory, but it remembers their final nights even more. The fall of Rome in 410 AD was not just the collapse of a city, it was the shattering of an illusion that had stood for centuries. A reminder that power, once believed eternal, can vanish in a single generation. If you want to witness more of these moments, the nights when history changed forever, subscribe and join us. And tell us which forgotten catastrophe we should uncover next, because the past does not whisper its warnings, it leaves them burning in the ruins.